let's quickly break down the NX. So you have two flavors. You either have the 200T, which is what we're in right now, or the 300H, which is their hybrid model. And with this 200T, you get a 2.5 litre turbocharged 4-cylinder engine mated to an all-wheel drive system that features a 6-speed automatic gearbox. Now, with this car on the highway, one thing that has to be pointed out right away is just it's an incredibly easy car to drive. You don't get too much interruption with the bumps on the road. You hear them more than you feel them. And when you're in the normal and eco mode, the steering is very light. Now, styling is a completely subjective thing, different from person to person, but I have to just say that I think this is one of the best looking SUVs you can currently buy. And I say that because for one, I am a fan of the Lexus design language. I know a lot of people really can't stand it. But what I like about it is there's so many different things you can look at. To give you a brief example, looking in the rear view mirror here, you can see a line that disappears just right to the back of the car. And then underneath that, you see the door handle. And then underneath that, you then see sort of the arch extension for the wheel. So just driving along the highway, and you might be a little bored with the view ahead, just looking at the rear view mirror, you can study just the way these lines have been shaped. Other things to note, most of the materials you interact with are really lovely. I love how with the user interface, you kind of get this wrist rest, if we want to call it that. And then it makes it very easy and very natural to place your fingers to swipe along the touchpad. Carrying on with what I was saying about the F Sport, so we are in the Series 3, which is the top of the line model. You get a lot of really interesting features. So for one, you get these paddles behind the steering wheel, the various driving modes, unique seats that you can only get if you order an F Sport, and wireless phone charging. One thing I do want to note with the tech is that you do have a heads-up display here that's projected onto the screen, but I don't think it's ever bright enough. On the brighter setting, it's still a bit too dim, and when you put on sunglasses, you can barely see it at all. That's one thing that I would like them to change, is just to boost the brightness of that heads-up display. So one of the things that probably stood out to you more than anything was the color of this car, and they call it Molten Pearl. And I know if I was to buy myself an NX, it would have to be this color. Walking out to it every morning, before you get in, you just have to take a second and look at the color in it. I think it gives just a little boost of energy to your day. It's refreshing to see such a vibrant and energizing color. Pretty good materials all around. The majority of the things that you touch feel very nice in the hand. A nice little touch that I really like is how you have these Lexus branded screw heads just down here. I really like that touch. So I think that's really all that needs to be said here on the highway. So let's now go into the performance area of this review to see how this car performs when you throw it into some corners. So first of all, I have switched the car into its Sport Plus mode. Immediately, the throttle is far more alert, and the exhaust sounds like it's got a little rowdier. This 2.5 litre 4-cylinder is probably the best turbocharged 4-cylinder I've come across. And one of the reasons is that this is a twin scroll turbo, so that really helps reduce the lag. But the way the power builds is just so progressive and so linear, you really could be fooled in thinking that this isn't turbocharged. When you're in normal mode, there is a bit of body roll, but the sport mode does limit it slightly. I suppose this is where the adaptive suspension is coming into play, but there's still quite a bit. But this is a 4,000 pound high riding SUV, so you're not gonna corner as flat as you want. So if you are buying a Lexus NX to throw around, yeah, you can throw it around, but is it gonna provide you with the definitive sports car experience? No. So let's go back into town to find out what this car is like to live with on a day-to-day basis. As I am in town, we are driving in normal mode, and you do have an eco mode as well. It really lags the throttle pedal, meaning that the amount of effort that you put into the pedal isn't translated to how much input the engine is getting. Whenever I get these test cars, I'm always a little scared to parallel park it because it's not my car and I'd hate to return it with a curved rash wheel. But I attempted a parallel park in this the other day, and it was probably the easiest parallel park I've ever done because you get the rear view camera that gives you guidance to how you're turning into a space, and then the mirrors automatically pivot down when you go into reverse so you can see the curb. And although there is quite a sizable blind spot behind you, the visibility all around is pretty good. A nice little interior feature of this car is, look, you lift up this tiny little panel here, and first of all you can see you, and then you get a tiny little hideaway for sunglasses. That's a nice little spot for them because there's nothing up here where you would typically find it in most cars. What really separates the NX from some of its competitors is that this isn't based on a hatchback. This isn't a CT with jacked up suspension and some body cladding. This is based on an SUV platform, and that platform is the right place to start because, for one, you have a lot of space. I was initially thinking, as this is the baby SUV, that I wouldn't have any room in here, but I've got plenty of room. The seat bottoms definitely aren't long enough, but because I can have my feet flat on the floor, that's not really an issue here. And as you can see, fair amount of headroom even with the sunroof here. This SUV looks like an SUV, it's built like one, it drives like one, and it has the practicality of one too. So saying that, let's pull over somewhere so I can show you the back seats and other practical features about this NX. Here in the back seat of the NX, things aren't all that bad, but there are some things I do need to point out. For one, you can't get the glass all the way down, which is a bit of a shame, and there aren't any USB ports back here, but there is a single power socket, which is very nice. You do have pockets behind each seat, and I have set this driving seat in my preferred position, and I can just about get in with almost no knee room or foot room. But if I sit up straight, my head isn't touching the roof. But the big thing I want to point out with this back seat is that these seats are 60/40 folding, but they don't clip into the back frame at all. They only move when you lift this handle down here. And the nice thing about that is that you can sit upright, just as I am now, or push the seat backwards, so then you can lie down a bit. So checking out the trunk of the NX, first thing to point out is that you do have this security cover up here, which if you want to take it down, just have to unhook it, fold it over, push it back like so, and then it's out. So very easy to move around if need be. And then if you look under the carpeted section here, you do also have a little more storage, and then under this foam cover is where you keep your spare wheel. So that concludes my review of this Lexus NX. And at the end of the day, I think this car is fantastic to live with. It provided me with pretty much everything I would need out of a daily driver. And the looks of it, the color of it, they gave me a certain level of enthusiasm to go and look at it every morning. And saying that, if you're looking to buy yourself a small family SUV, what more could you want? So again, many thanks go out to Lexus of Royal Oak for giving me this car to review. This is the Drive Guide, signing off.